The first thing Elias Crane heard was the thud of a body hitting the ground. Not his, not an animal's human. He spun around instinctively, rifle half-raised eyes scanning the red dusk. The plains were usually quiet at this hour, too quiet for someone to collapse this close to his well. Elias moved fast, boots cutting through dry sand, breath sharp from the sudden spike of danger. The figure on the ground tried to crawl. Fingers clawed weakly at the dirt. A trail of dark blood smeared across the stones. Elias reached her before she could lift her head. A young woman, barely more than 20, her skin sunk. Long hair, tangled with dust and dried sweat. Her clothes were torn, marked with symbols every frontiersman recognized. Apache. Her eyes snapped open at the sound of his steps, wild, defensive, ready to fight, even while dying. She dragged a small obsidian knife from her belt, but her hand shook so hard, the blade slipped and fell. Then, Elias saw what she had been running from. Boot prints in the sand. Deep, frantic, overlapping. More than one pursuer. And fresh. He crouched beside her without lowering his rifle. "Who's after you?" he asked. No answer, only a ragged breath and a faint choke of pain. The wound in her side pulsed with every inhale, soaking her deerskin clothing in blood. Whoever had cut her wanted her dead, not captured. Elias didn't hesitate. He grabbed her under the arms and dragged her toward the well. She fought him weakly, assuming he was just another enemy. But he set her down gently and splashed water onto her lips. "Drink, or you won't survive 5 more minutes." She hesitated, then drank like a dying animal. A whisper left her mouth, barely sound at all. No. He didn't know whether it was her name or a plea, but he nodded as if he understood. His instincts screamed at him to move tracks that fresh meant hunters were close. But he couldn't leave her bleeding on the ground. Not after everything he'd seen in the war. Not after swearing he'd never let the helpless die again. Elias lifted her into his arms and carried her inside. Bolting the door with one sharp motion, he laid her on his only spare cot, tore open his medical kit, and began stitching the wound as fast as his shaking hands allowed. Outside, the plains fell unnaturally silent. A silence that meant watchers. A silence that meant danger. Elias froze when he heard the low rumble of hooves. Not one horse, not 3. Hundreds. He stepped outside, rifle in hand. Across the horizon, riders emerged from the heat haze like ghosts. Row after row of mounted Apache warriors formed a tightening ring around his homestead. Bows in hand, rifles raised, faces unreadable. They weren't charging. They were waiting. And Elias realized, with a cold drop in his gut, they weren't here for him. They were here for the girl he had just saved. Elias stood motionless, the rifle heavy in his hands. Though even he knew it wouldn't save him if the Apache riders decided to attack. 300 warriors surrounded his homestead in a wide, perfect ring, silent, disciplined, and terrifying in their stillness. The rising sun caught on the polished metal of their rifles and the painted symbols on their shields, turning them into a wall of color and steel. The leader approached first. Not fast, not threatening, almost ceremonial. He was an older man with braids streaked with white, his face carved by wind and time. The others parted for him without a word. Elias didn't raise his weapon. Doing that would mean death. The old man stopped, a few steps from him, and studied him with eyes that had seen more wars than Elias could imagine. Finally, he spoke in calm, measured English. "You took her inside." His voice was not accusatory. Not yet. Elias kept his own voice steady. "She was dying. I helped her. That's all." A murmur rippled through the rider's soft but sharp, like a gust slicing through tall grass. The elder's expression didn't change. "She is Nia," he said, "daughter of our second chief. She left our camp last night, hunted by men who wear your boots." Ilias's jaw tightened. "I don't wear boots like that anymore." Another murmur. One rider shifted in his saddle, hand resting on a bow. Elias forced himself not to flinch. The elder's eyes narrowed slightly. "We watched you stitch her wound. You did not hurt her. You did not hand her to her hunters." He stepped closer. "This means something." Elias resisted the urge to step back. "It means I wasn't going to let someone die on my doorstep." The elder studied him for a long, silent moment, then raised his hand. Instantly, the entire circle of riders dismounted. Hundreds of boots touched the ground in one synchronized thud. Dust rose around them like smoke. Elias swallowed hard. "Bring her out," the elder said. Elias stiffened. "She can barely breathe." "She's not moving." "That is why we must see her," the elder replied. "To know she still walks the world of the living. To know your intentions." Elias considered refusing only for a heartbeat. But refusing with 300 warriors around him wasn't bravery. It was suicide. He turned toward the cabin. As he reached the doorway, he heard the elder call after him. "Your choice this morning will decide the fate of more than one life." Inside the cabin, the air felt warmer to warm. Nia lay where he had left her, breathing shallowly, her skin pale under the blankets. Elias knelt beside her and touched her forehead, fever heat cursed under his breath. She needed time. She didn't have any. "Can you hear me?" he asked softly. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then sharpening when they found his face. Fear flashed, their fear of pain, of death, of what waited outside. But behind it was something else, recognition. She remembered him. "They're here," she whispered. Her voice was barely sound at all. "I know," Elias replied. "Your people want to see you alive." She tried to sit up, grimaced, and fell back. Elias supported her gently. "You don't have to walk," he said. "I'll carry you." For a moment, she looked at him with suspicion, the old instinctive mistrust between their worlds flickering through her eyes. Then the tension faded. She gave a small nod. Elias lifted her as carefully as he could and stepped out onto the porch. The reaction was immediate. A wave of relief moved through the Apache ranks, not loud, not dramatic, but visible in the way shoulders lowered and weapons eased by a fraction. The elder stepped forward and placed his hand over his heart. "She lives," he said. "Good." Nia stirred weakly in Ilias's arms, trying to speak. The elder leaned closer to hear her faint whisper. Whatever she said brought a sharp shift in his face, surprise first, then something that looked almost like respect as he glanced at Elias. "You protected her," the elder said, "against enemies not your own." "I don't choose sides," Elias answered quietly. "Not anymore." The elder studied him for a long moment. "Then perhaps the spirits chose for you." Before Elias could ask what that meant, a distant crack echoed across the plain, sharp, metallic, unmistakable. A gunshot. The Apache riders reacted instantly, forming a protective barrier around the elder. Elias ducked, shielding Nia instinctively. Another shot. Closer this time. Then he saw them, dust rising on the northern ridge, horses, rifles glinting, settlers. And leading them, coat flapping in the wind, badge shining on his chest. Sheriff Dalton. The hunters had arrived. And they were not here for peace. Sheriff Dalton. rode at the front of the approaching riders with the arrogance of a man who had never heard the word no spoken to him. His coat snapped behind him, and his rifle rested ready across his saddle. The men following him, settlers, volunteers, and a few desperate drifters, formed a ragged line of dust and hatred. Elias felt Nia tense in his arms. Even half-conscious, she recognized the danger in the same heartbeat he did. Dalton pulled his horse to a sharp stop, boots scraping dirt. His eyes swept over the Apache warriors, then locked onto Elias like a blade. "Well, I'll be damned," Dalton said, voice dripping with venomous satisfaction. Crane's taken himself an Apache girl. Elias set his jaw. She was dying. I helped her. That's it. Dalton spat into the dirt. That's it. You're harboring the daughter of their war chief, and you think that's it? A murmur rippled through the settlers behind him, eager, hungry for a fight. The Apache warriors didn't move, but the silence they held was dangerous, thick, like the air before lightning strikes. The elder stepped forward, planting his staff into the dirt between them. Your men hunted her like an animal, he said, voice calm but edged with fire. This land remembers such things. Dalton barked a laugh. Your people raided a caravan last week. 5 dead, 3 missing. That girl is responsible. That girl, the elder replied coldly, was not in that raid. And you know it. Dalton's smile vanished. His hand tightened on his rifle. I'm not here to debate, he said. I'm here for the girl. And anyone who stands between me and the law will be treated as an enemy of the territory. Elias felt the tension tighten around him like a noose. Both sides had weapons, drawn bows flexed, rifles ready. One wrong move, one wrong word, and the plains would explode in blood. Nia stirred weakly, whispering something Elias couldn't quite hear. He looked down at her, then at the circle of warriors standing between life and war. Dalton's voice cut through the air like a whip. Crane, you bring her to me now, and I'll give you my word, you won't hang for siding with these savages. The Apache warriors stiffened. Elias felt something inside him snap, not anger, but a cold clarity. He stepped forward, still holding Nia, but no longer retreating. I'm not giving her to you, he said. Not when I know what you'll do. Dalton's eyes narrowed to slits. Then you've chosen. No, Elias replied. I said, I don't choose sides. Dalton raised his rifle. You just did. That was the moment Elias knew gunfire was inevitable. But the first person to move wasn't Dalton. It was the Apache elder. The elder lifted his staff high, and the entire Apache line shifted with a smoothness that made the settlers flinch. In one synchronized motion, shields rose, bows drew back, and rifles leveled. The settlers scrambled into firing positions, some shouting, some cursing, many suddenly realizing they were outnumbered and outmatched. Dalton didn't flinch. His pride wouldn't allow it. Put down the weapons. He barked to his men, though he didn't lower his own. Nobody fires unless I give the order. But his voice trembled not with fear, but with fury. Elias gently laid Nia behind a water trough for cover, then stepped into the open. Dalton, listen to me. If anyone fires, you're going to kill every person here. Dalton sneered. Only if they don't drop their weapons. Elias pointed at the Apache line. They're not going to drop anything. They're here because you chased a wounded girl across half the frontier. This ends with you backing off. Dalton's horse stamped anxiously, sensing the tension. But Dalton held his ground. You don't tell me how this ends, Crane. The elder stepped beside Elias. Then I will, he said. Dalton scowled. "You don't speak for this land." "I speak for blood spilled on it," the elder replied. Something in Dalton snapped. Maybe it was pride. Maybe rage. Maybe the realization he was losing control of the moment. He jerked his rifle up, and Elias moved before he had time to think. He slammed his shoulder into Dalton just as the gun fired, sending the shot wide. A settler screamed in panic. Two Apache bows released by instinct, arrows thudding into the dirt inches from settlers' boots. Horses reared. Men shouted. Chaos surged like a breaking wave. Dalton crashed to the ground, fist swinging. Elias blocked, countered, grabbed the rifle barrel and twisted. The metal burned his palms. Dalton fought with the fury of a man who believed he was the law incarnate. "You traitor," he snarled. "You think they'll spare you after this?" Elias pinned him hard. "I'm trying to stop a massacre." By siding with savages, Elias didn't get to answer. A massive echoing boom split the air louder than gunfire, deeper than thunder. Every head turned. The Apache elder had slammed his staff into the earth. The ground vibrated. Silence fell instantly, smothering the chaos like a blanket. The elder pointed at Elias. "This man has saved the life of our daughter. He will stand trial hour. Trial 2. See if the spirits accept him." Dalton struggled beneath Elias's trial. "He's a damn settler." "He is what he proves himself to be," the elder replied. Then he pointed at Dalton. "And you, Sheriff, have broken sacred ground with blood intent. You will wait, here, until the trial ends." Dalton's expression twisted in outrage. Elias's heart pounded. A trial, before both nations, and his survival depended on passing it. They moved before Elias could gather his thoughts. Two Apache warriors approached him, not aggressively, but with an authority that left no room for argument. One took his rifle. The other seized his knife. Elias didn't resist. He knew enough about their culture to understand that the elder's word was absolute. Once the trial was declared, nothing short of death would interrupt it. Naya watched from where she lay behind the trough, her breathing shallow but steadier than before. For a moment, their eyes met, and Elias felt a strange flicker of reassurance from her gaze. Fear, yes, but also trust. She didn't want him to face this alone, but she didn't have a choice. Dalton, however, refused to stay silent. "You can't take him," he shouted, struggling against two settlers holding him back. "He's a citizen. He stands trial in my territory." The elder ignored him completely. "We begin," he said. The Apache riders parted, forming a long, narrow corridor of bodies and raised torches. Flames crackled in the rising wind, their heat mixing with the cold tension in the air. At the far end of the corridor, a circle of stones had been arranged, each marked with lines of white ash. In the center burned a small fire, controlled, focused, purposeful. Elias understood. This wasn't a punishment. This was a test, and he was its subject. Two warriors guided him forward, but didn't touch him, merely walking at his sides like escorts. The people lining the corridor watched him with unreadable expressions. Some were curious, others suspicious, a few hostile, all silent. When Elias reached the circle, the elder stepped inside and motioned for him to follow. Elias obeyed. The elder pointed to the fire. "There are two paths in a man," he said. "One that destroys and one that preserves. Today we see which path you walk." Elias swallowed. "And how do I prove that?" The elder ignored the question. Instead, he knelt and placed two identical wooden bowls on either side of the fire. One was filled with purified water. The other held glowing coals. but hot enough to burn through skin in seconds. "The fire judges," the elder said. "The world watches." A whisper of movement rippled through the gathered warriors. Elias looked at the bowls, then at the elder. "You want me to choose one?" "Not choose," the elder said. "Carry." Elias felt his stomach tighten. His hands were raw from fighting Dalton. His palms were blistered. Carrying either bowl would hurt. Carrying the wrong one would destroy him. "What happens if I fail?" he asked quietly. The elder met his gaze without blinking. "Then your life returns to the dust, and the girl returns to us." Dalton laughed sharply from the distance. "Perfect. Go on, Crane. Let's see if your new friends burn you alive for sport." Elias ignored him. He looked at the fire, the bowls, the warriors, the girl who trusted him more than anyone else on either side. He stepped forward, then reached for a bowl. A collective breath rippled through the Apache ranks as Elias lifted the bowl of coals. He didn't grab it out of bravery or defiance-only instinct. Something in him refused to choose the easy path, the one that would prove nothing. He grabbed the bowl firmly with both hands, and the pain hit him instantly. White-hot, blistering, like the touch of metal heated in a forge. He tightened his jaw, refusing to cry out. The elder nodded once, approving. "Walk." Elias stepped around the fire, each movement sending shockwaves of pain up his arms. The coals shifted inside the bowl, burning hotter, settling deeper. Sweat rolled down his temples, stinging his eyes. His breath came in harsh, uneven gasps. But he kept walking. "Do not drop it," the elder warned. "If you surrender the fire will take you." Elias didn't know exactly what that meant, but he didn't want to find out. Halfway around the circle, his legs shook. Pain blurred his vision. His hands screamed to let go. The heat crawled up his wrists like living creatures. He staggered. Nia's voice reached him weak, cracked, but clear. "Elias." He steadied himself. Dalton's mocking voice followed. "Look at him. Fool's gonna burn his hands off." But the settlers' laughter faded as they saw Elias straighten. Take another step, then another. Something shifted in the Apache line warriors leaning forward, eyes narrowing in something like respect. When Elias reached the end of the circle, the elder pointed to the ground. "Place it." Elias knelt, his arms trembling violently, and set the bowl down. His palms stuck to the wood, skin almost fused to it, and he tore them free with a ragged grunt of pain. The elder inspected the bowl, then Elias's burned hands. "Pain is truth," he said. "But pain alone doesn't prove a man." He lifted the bowl of water. For a moment, Elias thought the trial wasn't over, that he'd have to carry the second bowl as well. Instead, the elder tilted it gently and poured it over Elias's hands. The water hissed as it touched his burned skin. Elias inhaled sharply, but the relief was immediate. Cooling, healing. The elder set the bowl down and spoke loudly, so both nations could hear. "This man carries fire without letting it consume him. He chooses to protect, not destroy. He is not our enemy." A rustle of approval moved through the Apache ranks. Dalton looked furious. "You think that trial means anything under territorial law? That was nothing but your desert magic and primitive games." The elder turned sharply, eyes cold. "Trial is sacred. But peace," he pointed at Elias, "must be earned." He addressed both sides now. "This man will stand between our peoples until the danger passes. He will decide the fate of the girl and of the ones who hunted her." Elias blinked. "Me? Why me?" The elder placed a hand on his shoulder. "Because you walked through fire." Nia, watching weakly from the distance, managed the smallest smile. The tension on the plains thickened into something heavy and suffocating. The Apache warriors remained in tight formation around Elias's homestead, while Dalton and his men regrouped on the opposite ridge, pacing like wolves shut out of a kill. No one lowered their weapons. No one trusted anyone. Elias sat on the porch steps, his hands wrapped in cool herbal paste the Apache healer had applied. The burns throbbed, but the pain was fading into something. Manageable background. Noise compared to the storm that waited between the two camps. Nia slept inside, her breathing steadier now, no longer shallow and erratic. She was safe for the moment. Elias tried to find comfort in that, but his gaze kept drifting toward Dalton's campfire glowing in the dusk. They weren't going to wait long. Men like Dalton never did. The elder approached silently and stood beside him. Your hands will heal. The question is whether the land will... Elias sighed. Dalton won't walk away. He's too proud, too angry. And you? The elder asked. What anger do you carry? Elias didn't answer at first. His memories rose like ghosts: the war, the bodies, the children left crying in burned-out homes. He had been on both sides of brutality. He knew exactly what anger could turn into. I'm tired of choosing between sides, he finally said. Every time I do, people die. The elder nodded slowly. Then choose a different path. Elias gave a bitter laugh. Between an outlaw sheriff and 300 warriors, what path is left? The one no man sees, the elder replied. Before Elias could ask what he meant, a scout hurried toward them. Breath loud, expression tense. Riders, the scout said in Apache. Coming from the west. The elder stiffened. More settlers. No, not settlers. The scout hesitated. The hunters. The ones who wounded Nia. Elias's blood ran cold. The men who had chased her weren't Daltons. They were worse. Mercenaries hired to eliminate Apache leadership. Men with no loyalty except to coin. Men who didn't care about treaties, laws, or human life. And now they were coming straight toward the ranch. The elder turned to Elias. You stand between worlds, he said softly. Tonight, we see if you can hold them apart or if they crush you instead. Elias rose to his feet, pain forgotten. What do you need me to do? The elder pointed at the approaching dust cloud. Stop a war from becoming a massacre. The mercenaries arrived fast and without warning. Rough, hardened men with rifles slung across their backs and cold hunger in their eyes. Their horses were exhausted but driven mercilessly. They rode not with the caution of soldiers but with the reckless speed of predators chasing scent. As soon as they cleared the ridge, they saw the Apache formation and slowed only long enough to raise their weapons. Dalton stood, stunned. What the hell are you doing here? The lead mercenary grinned, revealing cracked teeth. Cleaning up your mess, Sheriff. You didn't finish the job, so the folks paying us sent for men who would. Dalton's face darkened. This is my territory. I never called you in. Doesn't matter, the mercenary replied. The money talks for you. The Apache warriors readied their bows. Their movements were sharp, deadly, coordinated. But Elias knew the mercenaries didn't come to negotiate. They wanted blood Apache or settler. Either would do. If the two hostile settler groups clashed with the Apache, everything would explode at once. Elias grabbed his rifle not to shoot, but to show authority, and stepped forward into the open ground between the three factions. Stop, he shouted. Nobody fires. The mercenary leader laughed. Who's this? The peacekeeper. Dalton spat. He's a traitor. Ignoring my orders. Taking their side. I'm taking nobody's side, Elias snapped. But if any of you fire, you won't survive the next 10 minutes. The mercenary smirked. Threatening me. Warning you. A long, deadly silence stretched across the plain. The elder approached and stood beside Elias. A united front. A symbolic line drawn in the dust. The mercenary leader studied them both. Move, he finally said. We're taking the girl. We were paid to. Elias's heart clenched. They still didn't know where she was, but they would tear the ranch apart to find her. You're not touching her, Elias said, voice low. The mercenary cocked his rifle. Try and stop us. And the world froze. As 3 armed factions aimed their weapons at one another. Apache bows drawn. Settlers ready to retaliate. Mercenaries itching to kill. Dalton yelling orders no one listened to. It was the exact kind of crossroads Elias Crane had lived his whole life trying to avoid. He took a breath, then another, and stepped forward into the very center of the killing ground. Then you'll have to shoot me first. The mercenary blinked, confused, irritated. Elias didn't stop walking. The elder whispered, "The path no man sees," and everything exploded at once. The first shot cracked the air like a whip mercenary trigger, panicked reaction. But it wasn't aimed at Elias. It hit the ground beside him, spraying dirt across his legs. That single shot sent chaos cascading outward. Apache warriors released a volley of arrows. Settlers dropped behind their horses. Dalton shouted something drowned by gunfire. The mercenaries split into 2 flanking lines, firing wildly, caring little about who they hit, so long as blood spilled. Elias ducked as a bullet screamed past his ear. He rolled behind a water trough, his palms burning with every movement, and scanned the battlefield. The Apache held the defensive line. Dalton's men were confused, firing at shadows. The mercenaries were circling, trying to break through toward the cabin. Toward Naya. Elias stood. He ran straight into the gunfire. Bullets snapped around him like angry insects. He kept sprinting, lungs burning, legs pounding the dirt. He wasn't thinking, just moving. The only image in his mind was Naya, lying vulnerable in that small room. A mercenary reached the cabin door first. Elias slammed into him shoulder first, knocking the rifle from his hands. The man swung a knife. Elias blocked with his forearm, ignoring the sting, and drove his knee into the mercenary's ribs. The man gasped, stumbled, and Elias hit him again hard enough to drop him. He grabbed the fallen rifle and kicked the door open. Naya struggled to sit up, clutching the blanket. Fear widened her eyes. Elias, stay low, he said. They're here for you. A crash sounded outside the mercenaries regrouping. Elias dragged a heavy cabinet in front of the door. Another against the window. The cabin trembled as someone slammed into the wall. They will not stop, Nia whispered. They want the blood of my father. Elias knelt beside her. Why were they hunting you? Her eyes filled with pain, not from her wound, but from memory. Because I refused to betray him. Another slam. Wood cracked. Elias grabbed his rifle. We need to move. She shook her head weakly. I cannot run. He scooped her into his arms. Pain shot up his burned hands, but he held on. Then I'll run for both of us. The cabin door burst inward. 3 mercenaries stormed in. Elias didn't hesitate. He dove through the back window, glass shattering around them. They hit the ground hard. He shielded Nia with his body, rolled, and sprinted into the tall grass behind the ranch. Gunfire followed. Arrows answered. The plains roared with war behind them. But Elias ran anyway because the only thing worse than dying now was failing. The girl whose life had been thrust into his hands. Elias pushed deeper into the tall grass. Every step a battle against exhaustion and burning lungs. Nia clung to him weakly, her breath warm against his neck. Behind them, the mercenaries crashed through the field, shouting orders, splitting into search lines. They were close, too close. He dropped to one knee in the shade of a rocky outcrop, gently lowering Nia. "Stay quiet," he whispered. She nodded, though fear trembled through her body. Elias scanned the landscape. Smoke rose from the battlefield behind them. Apache torches burning alongside settler gunfire. The ground vibrated with the clash of riders. Dalton's shouts carried faintly across the wind. This wasn't a battle. It was a storm swallowing everything. Nia touched Ilias's shoulder. "Why do you help us? You owe my people nothing." Elias met her gaze. "I've seen too many people die in wars they didn't choose." He looked out across the carnage. "I won't let you be one of them." A twig snapped. Elias grabbed Nia's hand, pulling her behind a boulder just as a mercenary emerged from the brush. The man scanned the area, rifle raised, breath heavy. Elias held his own breath, body tense. The mercenary stepped closer. Closer. His shadow passed over them. Elias moved. He lunged from behind the rock, tackling the man into the dirt. The mercenary swung wildly. Elias blocked, drove his elbow into the man's throat, and ripped the rifle away. The mercenary gasped, reaching for a knife. Elias fired. The shot echoed across the plain. Nia flinched. Elias didn't look at the body. He grabbed her hand. "Move." They emerged from the grass and found themselves on a small rise, overlooking the battlefield. From above, Elias saw the truth. The mercenaries were pushing toward the Apache flank. Dalton's settlers were losing ground. The Apache were close to being surrounded, and the elder who had risked everything to protect Elias stood in the center, staff raised, refusing to retreat. Nia tensed. They will kill him, and then they will kill us all. Ilias's jaw tightened. His burned hands throbbed with every heartbeat. He had tried to run from choosing sides, but the world had chosen for him. He lifted the rifle. "You can't fight 3 armies," Nia whispered. "I don't need to fight 3, he said, steadying his aim. "Just the right one." He fired. The bullet struck a mercenary about to flank the Apache line. Then another, and another. The tide shifted as the Apache warriors saw Elias firing on their enemies. A roar rose from their ranks, shout of unity, of renewed ferocity. Dalton's men hesitated, confused. The mercenaries cursed, scrambling for cover. The elder looked up the hill, saw Elias, and lifted his staff in acknowledgement. "You are the keeper," he murmured under his breath. "The one who stands where no other dares." Elias held the rifle tight. For the first time, he believed it. The thunder cracked so violently. It shook the rotting boards of the old barn, yet the sound that truly froze her blood was the heavy slam of the door behind her. She spun around, breath sharp in her chest, fingers instinctively curling around the small obsidian knife she still carried. Rainwater dripped from her, tangled black hair onto the dusty floor as she faced the silhouette in the doorway. A tall man, broad shoulders, hat lowered, a rifle slung casually across his back. The stranger didn't flinch when she raised her knife. He didn't reach for his weapon. He simply spoke. "Ma'am, if I wanted you dead, you wouldn't have heard me come in." His voice was steady, deep. The voice of someone used to storms-weathered ones and human ones alike. She backed away anyway, stumbling against a stack of hay. Every instinct screaming danger. Every instinct reminding her of the night she was cast out. The night truth became a crime. Another thunderclap shook the barn. She didn't blink. She kept the blade aimed at him. He stepped forward. Not fast, not threatening. Just close enough that the lantern light revealed his face. Rough, unshaven, and strangely gentle. Blue eyes that held concern instead of judgment. "You're freezing," he said. "And wounded." Her jaw tightened. She hated how quickly he saw through her. The cut on her shoulder burned in agreement, but she refused to show pain. "Don't come closer," she warned. He raised his hands, palms open. "I won't, but that storm's about to tear this place apart. And you're shaking like you'll collapse before it does." His kindness hit harder than fear. Kindness was unpredictable. Kindness had betrayed her before. She didn't answer. Rain hammered the roof in sheets, and the wind howled through the gaps in the boards. The cowboy took off his coat, and still keeping distance, set it on a barrel between them. "You don't owe me trust," he said. "Just don't die in my barn." Makes a man look careless. Despite herself, a breath escaped her, half disbelief, half reluctant amusement. He wasn't mocking her. He wasn't circling her like prey. He was simply there, solid, unmoved by her fear. She lowered the knife just an inch, just enough for him to see she was still dangerous, but also listening. "What do you want?" she demanded. His answer came without hesitation. "For you to survive the night." Lightning lit the barn in blinding white. And for the first time in far too long, she didn't feel completely alone. The storm intensified until the barn groaned like an old ship fighting waves. She wrapped the cowboy's coat around her shoulders, still wary, but too cold to refuse its warmth. The fabric smelled of smoke, leather, and long rides across open plains. Nothing like the sense of the camp she once called home. Nothing like the life she'd been forced to leave behind. He kept his distance, leaning against a wooden support beam as if he'd spent his whole life giving frightened people space. The lantern light carved faint lines on his face, the kind made by exhaustion rather than age. He watched her, not with suspicion, but with the careful attention of someone trying to solve a puzzle without breaking it. "You've been running a while," he said quietly. She stiffened. "You know nothing about me." "True, but I know what running looks like." He tapped the side of his boot against the floorboards. "And what it costs." His voice wasn't prying. It was a statement, one born from his own scars, not from curiosity about hers. She shifted on the bale of hay, keeping the knife hidden under the coat, though she wasn't sure she'd need it anymore, or if she even wanted to. A gust of wind slammed the barn door, and dust rained from the rafters. She flinched, and he noticed, but didn't comment. Instead, he crossed to an old trunk, opened it, and pulled out a small tin. "Hold still," he said. She tensed again, gripping the coat tighter. "Why?" "You're bleeding through the shoulder." He set the tin on the barrel between them. It sat, nothing more. When she hesitated, he took one slow step back. "You can apply it yourself if you'd rather. Just don't leave the wound open." Infections, a poor travel companion. She didn't trust him, but she trusted pain even less. She moved closer to the barrel and unscrewed the tin. The scent of pine resin and crushed herbs drifted up, reminding her of the healers in her old tribe before the lies, before the exile, before everything shattered. "You're a strange man," she muttered. He huffed a soft laugh. I get that a lot. She dabbed the salve onto her shoulder, hissing through her teeth as the sting hit. He looked away respectfully, pretending to busy himself with adjusting a rope that didn't need adjusting. It was a small kindness, but it landed deeper than he knew. When she finished, she caught him looking at her, again, but searching in a way she couldn't quite decipher. You got a name? He asked. She hesitated. Names were dangerous. Names carried stories. Names could be used against you. But something about the storm, the barn, the quiet steadiness of this strange cowboy made her feel the smallest spark of safety, at least for this one moment. My name, she said slowly, is not... He nodded once, as if he'd been waiting for her to trust him with something, anything. Naya, he repeated. Good minds, Colt. The storm roared, but inside the barn, for the first time in days, she felt a breath of calm. The storm outside lost none of its fury. Each rumble of thunder rolled across the plains like distant drumbeats, shaking loose memories she wished she could bury. Naya kept her gaze fixed on the barn floor, tracing the cracks in the wood while Colt adjusted the lantern wick, brightening the dim space with a steady, amber glow. For several long minutes, they spoke nothing. It wasn't an uncomfortable silence, just thick, heavy, the kind that forms when two strangers share a roof during a night too dangerous to face alone. Colt finally broke it. You're hurt worse than you let on. Naya's jaw tightened. I've survived worse. That's not the point, he replied. Pain tells a story. You don't strike me as someone who'd let herself get cornered unless something bad went down. She looked up sharply, suspicion flashing across her face. Are you asking what happened? No, he said, shaking his head. I'm saying I don't need to know. Not unless you want to tell it. That answer unsettled her more than any interrogation would have. People always wanted to know. People always wanted her to justify her existence, her choices, her survival. Yet this man simply watched her with quiet steadiness, offering neither pressure nor false comfort. She wrapped the coat tighter around herself, pulling it close against the chill creeping up her spine. If I told you, she said slowly, you'd think I was cursed. Colt almost smiled. Ma'am, I've seen cursed. I've ridden alongside men who were their own curse. You don't look like any of them. Her throat tightened. He didn't realize how close to the truth he was. A sharp blast of wind forced open a thin gap between the boards, making the lantern flicker. Naya flinched at the sudden draft, but Colt moved calmly, shoving a straw-filled sack against the wall to block the cold. When he turned back, his hat dipped slightly, casting a shadow across his eyes. This barn won't hold if the wind shifts. When the storm eases, I'll take you somewhere safer. She blinked at him, stunned. You'd take me with you. You don't even know who I am. Colt shrugged. I know you're freezing, bleeding, and scared enough to hide in a pile of hay instead of asking anyone for help. That's enough. Why? She whispered. Because someone should have helped you before tonight. The words struck her harder than any blow. No one had said something like that to her since the day her world fell apart. She lowered her gaze, breathing unsteadily through the ache rising in her chest. Colt didn't move closer. He didn't offer a hand or a touch of comfort. He simply gave her time to steady herself. And somehow, that made her feel safer than any gesture of sympathy could have. She finally forced the question that had been burning inside her. If you take me away from here, what will you expect in return? He answered without hesitation. Nothing. She shook her head. No one does something for nothing. The storm dragged on into the night, But the air inside the barn changed. It wasn't warmer, still clung to the walls, but something tense had started to unwind between them. Nausea shifted positions, settling against the stack of hay as Colt moved with deliberate calm, checking the roof for leaks and tapping the wood to ensure nothing would collapse before morning. But her eyes followed him. Every step, every breath, every glance he didn't know she caught. She didn't trust easily. She wasn't sure she trusted him now. But the storm felt less suffocating when he was near, and she hated the strange comfort that brought. Colt finally lowered himself onto an overturned crate, stretching his long legs out before him. His boots were muddy, soaked through, but he didn't seem bothered. The lantern light carved golden lines along his jaw, making him look almost unreal in the dimness. "You keep watching me," he said without accusation. Naya's pulse stuttered. "I don't." He raised one brow. "You've got a good knife hand, but a terrible liar's face." Heat touched her cheeks. Annoyance, not embarrassment, she told herself. "I watch everyone. Why? Because people show their intentions if you look long enough." Colt nodded, accepting the answer without pushing further. He leaned back, folding his hands over his middle. "Then look as long as you need." Those words, simple, steady, hit her harder than expected. Most men would have bristled under scrutiny, demanded trust, or pushed her to explain her caution. Colt did none of those things. It unsettled her. It disarmed her. It made her wonder what kind of life he'd lived to speak with that kind of quiet certainty. A loud gust slammed against the barn, making the roof tremble. Naya instinctively lowered herself, shoulders tightening. Her body reacted before her mind caught up, as if expecting an attack rather than weather. Colt noticed. Without making a sound, he shifted so he was facing her fully. Not looming, not approaching. Just there, solid, steady, watching her with the patience of someone waiting for a frightened animal to calm. "You've been hurt by more than storms," he said carefully. She swallowed hard. "You don't know anything about my people." "No," he agreed. "But I know what fear looks like when it's been carved into a person." Her gaze snapped to him, sharp as flint. He didn't retreat. He didn't soften his words. He simply let them rest in the air between them. Naya opened her mouth to argue, to deny. But another crack of thunder stole her voice. She wrapped her arms around herself, holding in the tremor that threatened to climb up her spine. Colt didn't miss it. He spoke again, quieter, almost a murmur lost to the rain. "Whatever you ran from, you're not facing it alone tonight." She stared at him, this stranger who offered safety without demand, kindness without expectation, and for the first time since her exile, something inside her loosened, just a fraction. Not trust. Not yet. The barn had settled into a fragile calm, but inside, Naya's storms still clashed. She drew the coat tighter, feeling its weight like a barrier between her and the memories she tried to keep buried. Colt had returned to examining the rafters, knocking lightly on each beam as if listening for secrets in the wood. The silence stretched until it felt like another presence in the barn quiet. Watchful, patient. Naya's fingers tightened around the blade hidden beneath the coat. Its familiar edge steadied her breathing. "Colt," she said suddenly, surprising herself more than him. He paused, lowering his hand from the beams. "Yeah." Her voice came out rough. "If I tell you even a little of what happened, you won't use it against me." Colt blinked slowly, like someone absorbing the weight of a question he didn't expect. "Naya, if you speak, it stays here, between us. And if you don't want to speak, that's fine too. No pressure, no coaxing, Just choice is something she hadn't been given in a long time. The rain hammered the roof in a relentless rhythm, like the heartbeat of the night itself. Naya stared at the lantern flame, drawing courage from its steady flicker. "My people think I betrayed them," she said at last. Colt didn't move. "I didn't," she added quickly. "I told the truth. But sometimes truth cuts deeper than lies." His voice was steady. Truth usually does. She inhaled shakily, surprised at how easily the words came. Someone powerful, someone the tribe trusted, did something unforgivable. I spoke out. I thought justice would follow. Her lips curved in a bitter line. Instead, they cast me out. Said I had dishonored them. Colt's jaw clenched. Not in judgment, she could read judgment. She had lived under its shadow but, in anger on her behalf. "That's why you ran," he murmured. "I didn't run," she corrected, glaring through the ache in her chest. "I was chased." Colt closed the distance of a single step, not too close, but close enough that she could see the sincere fire in his eyes. "Naya, nobody should be punished for telling the truth." She looked away, unable to meet that kind of conviction. "You say that now, but you don't know the price of standing with me." He didn't hesitate. "Then I'll pay it when it comes." Those words struck her like a blow. No one had ever said anything like that to her. No one had stood beside her without needing proof, without demanding something first. She felt her throat tighten. She hated the weakness of it, but she couldn't stop the tremor that moved through her. Colt noticed, and for the first time, he took a slow, careful step closer. "Naya," he said softly, "you're safe here. You're not alone." The lantern flickered, the storm howled, and she felt something inside her shatter quietly, painfully but not in fear, in release. The storm refused to fade. If anything, it pressed harder against the barn, as though the sky held its breath before something broke loose. Naya pushed herself upright, ignoring the sharp pull in her shoulder. Staying still only made her thoughts louder, and tonight they clawed at her like old ghosts refusing to die. Colt noticed instantly. "Easy," he murmured. "You're hurt. I've been hurt before." She moved toward the door, toward the thin line of darkness between the wooden planks. Rain hammered the earth outside, but beneath the rhythm she sensed something wrong, something waiting. Colt stepped beside her, close enough for warmth, far enough not to threaten. "You hear something. Maybe." She hated how unsure it sounded. He didn't dismiss her. He simply listened with her, head tilted, breath quiet. All they heard was storm and wind, but her instincts had carried her across deserts and exile. They rarely failed. Colt placed his palm on the door. The wood trembled beneath his touch. "If someone tracked you this far," he said, "rain wouldn't stop them. Just slow them." Her pulse quickened. "You think someone is out there?" "I think you wouldn't be shaken if you weren't sure." "I'm not shaking," she snapped. His mouth twitched in a sad, almost smile. "Yes, you are." The barn suddenly felt too small, too exposed. Safety had always been an illusion, fragile, temporary, easily shattered. Colt stepped back and grabbed his rifle. He didn't raise it. He just held it with the ease of a man who knew danger personally. "I'll check outside." "No." Her voice cut through the air. "If someone hunts me, going alone is suicide." He shrugged. "Survived worse than a little rain." She blocked him before she realized she'd moved. Her fingers clutched his shirt, gripping fabric soaked from the storm. Heat rushed through her as she pulled away, embarrassed. Colt looked from her hand to her face. He saw more than she wanted him to. "I'm not letting you risk yourself because of me," she said. He exhaled slowly. "And I'm not leaving you scared out of your mind. I'm not scared." "You are," he said softly. "And you've earned the right." Her breath wavered. "If they find me, they'll kill anyone who helps me." Colt didn't hesitate. "Then they'll have to go through me first." His certainty shook her more than fear. Another groan rolled through the barn, wind screaming between the boards like a warning. Danger wasn't a distant shadow anymore. It was already here. "I don't want you to die for me," she whispered. He held her gaze, steady and unshakable. "I'm not planning on dying. And I'm damn sure not letting you face this alone." For a heartbeat, the storm softened. For a heartbeat, she believed him. Another violent gust slammed into the barn, rattling the rafters. Dust drifted down through the lantern's glow, shimmering like sparks from a dying fire. The storm had become a creature breathing, warning, watching. Naya felt its tension settle along her spine. Colt moved with controlled precision, checking every crack and shadow. He walked like a man who'd lived too long with danger whispering at his back. She watched him, feeling a pull in her chest she wished she could ignore. "Colt," she whispered. He paused, turning. "What if it's my tribe? What if they came to finish what they started?" His expression didn't shift. "Then they should have brought more men. Colt, anyone who hunts a woman for speaking. Truth ain't worth fear." He rested the rifle against his shoulder. "But if they're out there, I'll handle it." His confidence should have soothed her. Instead, it twisted deeper into her worry. She had seen men like her, hunters relentless, merciless, blind to reason. Anyone standing beside her became a target by default. "I don't want blood spilled for me," she said. "You didn't choose this fight. They shoved it on you." Lightning burst through the cracks, lighting his features jaw set, eyes steady. A man shaped by hardship rather than pride. He wasn't afraid, and that terrified her. Before she spoke again, a faint metallic clink cut through the storm. Colt's head snapped toward the sound. He lifted a hand, signaling her to stay back. What was that? She breathed. He crouched low, listening. Even the storm seemed to pause. "It wasn't thunder," he said. Ice slid through her veins. Another sound followed, a slow, wet step in the mud outside. Too controlled, too human. Colt pressed his ear to the door, muscles taut. Someone moved just beyond the wall, close enough to touch. He raised his rifle. "Naya," he said quietly, "behind me. I can fight." "I know, but you're hurt. And I need you, alive." Lightning lit the world again, brief, white, blinding. Outside, shifting shadows passed across the barn wall. They weren't alone. Naya forced her breathing steady. She wasn't the frightened girl who fled into the night. She wasn't helpless. But the thought of Colt, standing between her and death, made her chest twist painfully. "Colt," her voice broke. "Don't die." He almost smiled, soft, certain. "I won't. I gave you my word." The noise outside grew heavier, closer. The night was no longer just a storm. Something was coming. The night sharpened into something predatory. The storm no longer sounded like winded, sounded like cover. Whoever moved outside knew how to hide behind noise. Colt stood still, finger near the trigger. Breath steady, despite the chaos hammering the roof. Naya pressed her back to a beam, knife tight in her hand. Her muscles remembered too much, running through canyons at night. Hunters calling her name, footsteps closing in. The past felt close enough to touch. Colt glanced at her, eyes speaking what words didn't. "Stay alive." Her look answered, "Don't be stupid." It was the closest thing to a promise amid the storm. A soft scrape slid along the barn wall to controlled to be the wind. Colt shifted, rifle aimed at the door. The lantern flickered, as if frightened. Her tribe's trackers moved like ghosts. If they were here, she knew the outcome. They would drag her out and leave Colt for dead. She whispered, "Colt, if it's them." "It doesn't matter who it is," he said. "They step inside. They face me. You don't know what they can do. I know what I can." A heavy thud struck the door testing, measuring. Colt didn't flinch. "That wasn't wind," he muttered. Naya moved behind him, close but careful. Lightning flashed, outlining the door in white. Then a voice seeped through the cracks. Not. Her blood froze. Colt straightened. "Who is it?" "Casso," she whispered. "Your accuser." "No, worse, his brother." Outside, Casso's tone curled into a drawl. "Bring her out, cowboy, and we'll spare you." Colt snorted. "Not a chance." Rain-masked footsteps circling the barn. Naya's grip tightened. Fear clawed at her, but Colt's presence held her steady. Casso growled, "We only want what's ours." "I don't belong to you," she shot back. Casso laughed. "Then I'll carve the truth out of you." Colt's voice turned to steel. "You're not touching her." The storm roared. The night tensed. Something would break hand. It wouldn't be her. Naya's heartbeat hammered, reminding her she was still alive. The barn felt smaller, the storm pressing against the walls. Colt positioned himself between her and the door with quiet certainty. His silhouette stood unmovable in the lightning. Casso's voice returned, colder. "You always were stubborn, girl. Thought truth could save you." "Truth did save me," she said. He chuckled. "Then let's see if it keeps you breathing tonight." Colt braced himself. "You talk too much for a man about to lose." Storm weight. The barn door shuddered as a second blow slammed into it. Deliberate, fueled by rage. Dust rained from the rafters. The horses in the stalls whinnied, hooves pounding nervously against the straw. Colt raised his rifle, boots braced in the dirt. They're testing the hinges. A chill crawled up Naya's spine. Casso never tested long. He struck until something broke. She had seen him tear through camp walls, had seen warriors twice his size shrink from his fury. He was his brother's shadow, cruel, loyal, unstoppable. "Colt," she whispered, "there may be more than one." "There usually is. Hunters travel in packs." His gaze flicked to her knife. "You sure you can fight?" "I've had two." Thunder cracked overhead, covering the crunch of footsteps outside. Naya crept to the lantern and extinguished it. Darkness swallowed the barn. "Smart," Colt murmured. In the dark, her heartbeat steadied. She knew shadows. She'd lived in them. Her tribe cast her out, but they had trained her well. Tracking, silence, survival. The tools she needed now. Outside, Casso barked an order in Apache, harsh and unmistakable. "We break the door." Colt didn't know the words, but he knew the intent. Guessing that wasn't friendly. "No, they're coming." The next impact nearly tore the door from its frame. Wood cracked. A long, splintered line streaked across it like lightning. Colt positioned himself behind a wagon wheel, perfect cover. "When that door gives, stay behind me. I can help. You will." By staying alive. The door groaned. The bar shook violently. Nails screamed. One more hit would break everything. Naya pressed against a beam, breathing through panic. She could almost see Casso's twisted face in the cracks. Eyes burning with the belief she was a stain needing erasing. His voice echoed from memory. "You will regret speaking, girl." She clenched her jaw. "Not tonight." The fourth strike landed. The bar snapped. The door exploded inward. Rain burst into the barn with the shadows rushing through the opening. Colt fired sharp, controlled. A scream tore through the thunder. One shadow fell. Two more surged in behind it. Naya moved before fear pinned her. Her knife flashed in the dim light. A man lunged. She slipped beneath his arm and slashed deep across his forearm. He roared, dropping his weapon. Colt fired again. Muzzle flash lit the barn in violent white. Shadows moved like wolves. Colt like a grounded storm. Naya like a spark refusing to die. Then Casso stepped inside. Massive, silent, smiling. His eyes locked on her. "There you are," he whispered. The storm howled. The barn trembled. And Naya's past finally found her. Casso filled the doorway like a nightmare made of flesh. Broad shoulders blocking what little light remained. Rain streaked down his face, mixing with the dirt and blood already smeared across his skin. His eyes cold, merciless, hungry, fixed solely on nausea. Ignoring the chaos around him, Colt raised his rifle, but Casso lifted a hand as if swatting aside a fly. "You don't want this, cowboy," he growled. "Step aside. She belongs to us." "She belongs to no one," Colt replied, voice low, steady, dangerous. Casso smiled, slow and cruel. "Says the man who knows nothing of her sins." Naya's breath hitched. "My sin was telling the truth." Casso's smile died instantly, replaced by hate sharp enough to cut bone. "Your truth killed my brother." Colt's gaze darted to Naya. "Is that true?" She swallowed hard, forcing herself to hold Casso's stare. "I exposed him. The tribe judged him. His death was his own doing." Casso took a step forward, boots sloshing in the rain pooling at the door. "You shamed him. You ripped our family apart. You destroyed everything we were." His voice rose, cracking under a wave of fury. "You murdered him with your lies." Colt fired a warning shot at Casso's feet. "Another step, and I won't aim for the ground." Casso didn't flinch. He stared at Colt with something almost like amusement. "You think you can save her? You think she's worth dying for?" "I don't need to think," Colt said. "I know." A violent roar tore from Casso's throat as he lunged, straight for Colt. The impact sent both men crashing into a stack of crates, splintering wood across the barn floor. Colt fought to keep hold of his rifle, but Casso's strength was monstrous, fueled by grief and rage, sharpened into obsession. Naya darted forward instinctively. Knife raised, but a second man grabbed her from behind, pulling her back. She kicked, twisted, drove her elbow into his ribs. The grip loosened just enough for her to slash across his cheek, sending him stumbling away with a howl. Casso slammed Colt against the ground, fingers closing around his throat. Colt gritted his teeth, bracing his boots in the mud for leverage. Naya leaped onto Casso's back, driving her knife downward. He roared and flung her off with terrifying ease, sending her crashing into the barn wall. Pain erupted down her side. She forced herself to stand anyway, dizzy but determined. Casso stalked toward her. Colt scrambled to his feet, grabbing a broken board as a makeshift weapon. "You take another step toward her," he rasped, "and I'll end you where you stand." Casso turned, eyes bloodshot and wild. "You think you can protect her? She brought death to my family. She'll bring it to yours." "I don't have a family," Colt said. His voice cracked not from fear, but something deeper, roar. "And maybe," he added, "that's why I won't let her lose hers." Naya froze. The words struck something deep inside her chest, something fragile, unguarded, aching. The fight blurred with thunder. Colt swung the broken board hard, smashing it across Casso's jaw. The big man staggered, but didn't fall. Rage fueled him. Pain only sharpened it. Naya darted in and slashed his arm. Casso backhanded her with brutal force, sending her to her knees as sparks burst in her vision. But the blow gave Colt an opening. He slammed his shoulder into Casso's ribs, driving him into a support beam. The whole barn trembled. Lightning flashed across Casso's twisted face. "You can't protect her," he snarled. "She destroys everything she touches." Colt wiped blood from his brow. "Funny, I was thinking the same about you." Casso lunged, a knife flashing from his belt. Colt dodged. Barely fabric split across his side. Naya's breath seized. She forced herself upright, staggering toward them. Casso swung. Colt caught his wrist, twisting until the knife skidded across the floor. Naya dove for it, fingers closing around the hilt just as Casso slammed Colt into the wall, choking him with one massive hand. Colt's boots scraped wildly as he fought for air. Naya's blood froze. "Stop!" she screamed. Casso pressed harder, teeth bared. Something snapped inside her. Grief, the exile, the truth she carried alone. All of it surged as she charged. "Naya," Colt rasped. "Don't." Too late. She drove the knife into Casso's side with every ounce left in her. He froze. A ragged sound tore from him. Blood spilled warm over her hand. He stumbled back, releasing Colt, clutching the wound in disbelief. "You," he rasped. "You'd kill your own tribe." Naya steadied herself. "I didn't kill your brother, but I will kill you if I must." Casso's knees buckled. Colt caught him, lowering him rather than letting him fall. "Even dying," Casso sneered. "Truth ruined us." "No," she whispered. "Lies did." His eyes dimmed. His chest stilled. The storm began to fade. For a long moment, Naya stood trembling, staring at the man who had chased her across canyons and plains. Colt touched her shoulder gently. "You had no choice," he said. "There's always a choice," she whispered. "I finally chose myself." Colt's expression shifted pain, admiration, something warmer beneath it. "You saved my life. You saved mine first." Rain softened to a whisper. The battered barn felt strangely quiet, strangely safe. Naya met his gaze. "Colt, what now?" He managed a tired smile. "Earlier tonight, I told you not to die in my barn. Turns out neither of us listened." A fragile laugh escaped her. Colt offered his hand. "Come with me, Naya, not because you're hunted, not because you're alone, because you deserve a place to begin again." She looked at his hand, then took it. "Take me home," she whispered. He squeezed gently. "Then pack your things, Naya. You're cumin with me." Outside, dawn broke through the clouds, a quiet promise of a new beginning.